Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
Did you happen to see the photographs of Dave and his family? I believe they were on vacation in Greece. On their summer vacation. Dave looked like he was having quite a bit of fun, so I just thought I'd share that as we kick off this week's episode, Depeche Mode, the podcast. Welcome, devotees. I'm your host, Jon Justice, and I'm glad that you are with another episode. We have a couple of interesting news items to share with you this week on the show. Still no news about the forthcoming M film or those unreleased tracks as we continue to await some level of promotion coming from the band for the film, which is supposed to come out here in the next couple of months. Do have some listener feedback, though, to go along with some official news this week on the show. As always, if you want to email me, TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, or if you're enjoying the show up on YouTube, you can check it out there. Let's get to the first news item this week. Now, this actually dropped like right after I posted last week's episode, which always seems to happen, by the way. I originally found this on the Depeche Mode Europe X page, but long-time Soundwaves collaborators, Dave Gahan and Martin Gore of Depeche Mode, are back again with an incredible 7-song artwork collection to fundraise for Notes for Notes. These are limited edition artworks to support Notes for Notes. Earlier this month, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famers and 5-time Grammy nominees kindly signed this limited edition collection. Just 12 prints and one original per song, created by Soundwave artist Tim Wakefield's favorite Depeche Mode songs, including popular hits and some deep cuts. Now, I think the original was Enjoy the Silence, but I thought the mix of songs that was chosen for this were rather interesting. Condemnation, which we know is a Dave Gahan favorite track, but Goodnight Lovers, I Want It All, Perfect, Rush, Sweetest Perfection, and Waiting for the Night. So each original artwork also features the song title handwritten by Dave Gahan. Now, the artwork in and of itself was based off of the music. I believe the music is what created the patterns of this art. Really beautiful, by the way. I mean, I'm no art connoisseur by any stretch, but I really thought the visuals were nice. The profits for Notes, which provides youth with free access to musical instruments, instruction, and recording studio environments so that music may become a profoundly positive influence in their lives. And this has also been added to the new Depeche Mode auctions from previously sold out auctions, which are all available now on their auctions page. So there were some videos that went along with this, although the videos themselves were just Dave and Martin doing the signing. You can watch them signing. There was no added conversation about anything, worth mentioning here on the show. I do find it rather interesting, though, that with the promotion of Memento Mori done, and the band is clearly on a break, we're expecting this promotion for the film to come, any day now. Then Martin and Dave, still take part in things like this, doing charity work. The official Instagram page posted this. And I guess the point that I want to make is that the band is still active, even though we have no announcement relating to any music anytime in the near future. Martin and Dave have had several opportunities to get together, whether it was the Tribeca Film Festival for the debut of the film itself. Martin certainly going out and getting involved in that pickleball tournament. That was apart from Dave, obviously. We're still awaiting the inclusion of the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Now, my understanding is Dave and Martin don't need to be there, but I imagine that they will be, at least Martin, since he doesn't live far from that area. All of this, to me, as a fan, is very encouraging, that we'll still get more out of Depeche Mode, beyond the songs that have already been created. I don't know why, when I see Dave and Martin together, still participating in things relating to Depeche Mode, I just can't help but think that, no, this isn't over yet. And, and it will be, more sooner than later, but I'm encouraged by this. Either way, it's exciting. If you haven't had a chance to go and check it out, I would certainly encourage you to go and do so. I believe that a number of these sold out rather quickly. So, all right, let's move on to some more news from this week. Depeche Mode fans call for hometown recognition. So I'm working off of the version here from BBC News. Fans of one of the world's biggest selling bands have called for them to be officially recognized in their hometown. Depeche Mode started out as a four-piece in Basildon, Essex in 1980 before achieving global fame and their trademark electronic sound and brooding lyrics. Barclay Corton, the lead singer of the tribute band The Devout, said in Basildon, there should be some sort of mural or something that draws in tourism from around the globe to say the magic was created here. Now, the Basildon Council has not responded to any requests for comments as of yet. However, Barclay Corton said the magic started here in this little town in Essex, and it means a lot to millions of people. Calls for their official recognition came as the BBC Radio 4 documentary Depeche Mode Reach Out and Touch Faith speaks to commentators and guests about the group's working-class roots and remarkable journey as musicians, and I'll have further thoughts to share beyond what I talked about last week. The band, originally called Composition of Sound, which is just ridiculous, formed by friends Andy Fletcher, Vince Clarke, and Martin Gore before Dave Gahan was recruited later. And now we get into a bit of a history lesson that you and I both know, but we'll go ahead and go through the article either way. They performed for the first time as a four-piece at Nicholas School and now James Hornsby School in Langdon, Basildon, which Gore and Fletch later attended, with Clarke, a former pupil at Langdon High School. The band, however, mostly live in the United States now and have been critical of their hometown interviews. Gore was quoted as saying, "I really hated Basildon. I wanted to get out as quickly as I could. I hear it's a pretty horrible place these days," while Gahan was quoted as saying, "All I remember about Basildon was that it was awful." Deb Danahay first became friends with Gahan at Barnstable School, with Depeche Mode playing one of their first gigs at a party she co-hosted at Paddock's Community Hall in Langdon. She used to help run the Depeche Mode Information Service, the band's early days. It was in relationship for 4 years with Clarke, who left to launch Yazoo with fellow Basildon musician Alison Moyet, and later Erasure with Andy Bell. Miss Danahay now takes dedicated Depeche Mode fans, known as devotees, on tours of Basildon, built to ease post-war overcrowding in London. The majority of visitors were from Europe, particularly Germany and South America, she said. Most of them think that they're going to come to the town center, and there's going to be statues of the band. They're really shocked that there isn't. Miss Danahay, who lives on Canvey Island, said that while there was a plaque within James Hornsby Sports Hall to commemorate Depeche Mode's first gig, there was little else in the way of official recognition. On tours, she limited to taking fans to a board outside photographs of Gore, Fletch, and Clarke, along with former pupils Alison Moyet, The Cure's Perry Beaumonte, and Bob the Builder, and Paw Patrol creator Keith Chapman. Fans appreciated the giant portraits of the band members in the Towngate Theater, too, she said. As pioneers of the electronic sound, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2020, Depeche Mode and their peers were shaped by growing up in a new town surrounded by young people, Miss Danahay said. My parents came from Dagenham, and lots of Dagenham and East End people moved there, she said. They got a brand new house, and the town center wasn't even built then. And it's an analogy that I've heard that there was no old people. There wasn't people saying you shouldn't be doing this or that. We had so much freedom and didn't appreciate it because we thought this was how every town was. Schools were brand new. Everything was completely brand new It was just brilliant. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. This actually has made quite a, there's been quite a bit of attention to this attempt to give them some recognition out of Basildon. When I was doing the prep for the show this week, there were several stories relating to this desire to give them some recognition. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not somebody is able to achieve something in terms of marking that moment in history for the band. So I'd love to know what you think. TalkShowNerd@gmail.com or leave a comment again up on YouTube. Let's go ahead and get to your listener feedback this week. All right, first and foremost, before I go say anything else, last week on the show, I was talking about the sample at the beginning of Stripped with the car turning on. Now, we knew it was done from a Porsche. I wasn't sure at the time, and because I record the show for live, I'm recording the show, but I treat it like it's live because that's just the best way that I perform, because I'm a radio talk show host, and so I'm live every single day. So I don't like to do edits. It saves time, and probably not the best thing for the quality of the show, be that as it may. It doesn't provide me the opportunity to sort of stop down, however, and go and do research. The reason why I was confused and I didn't think that it was Dave's Porsche was because I could have sworn that on the Remasters documentary, they were talking with one of the foreign label representatives, and they brought up the topic of the sampling and the sampling of that Porsche. And I could have swore that he had said that it was somebody else's, not Dave's. Like it was J.D. Fanger's or Kessler's Porsche. It turns out it was Dave's Porsche. I just want to say that for the record. I also want to mention, though, what is kind of funny is that they included a video of a Porsche in that documentary when they were talking about it, and they played that sample of the car starting up. That being said, the Porsche that they showed in the documentary was absolutely not the same model and brand of the Porsche that Dave actually owned at the time when they did that sample in the early 80s, just because I was able to go and track down what kind of Porsche well, I was informed of what kind of Porsche it was, and it was not the Porsche. It was like a 911 that they used in the video, and that's not the Porsche that Dave owned. So I had many of you who were pointing this out, and I appreciate the clarification. So I don't like it when I get my Depeche Mode trivia wrong. So I wanted to make sure that I went and cleared that up. All right, let's get to some of your feedback this week. And first, let's hear from, you're all friends of the show, but friend of the show, Chris Culpepper, who says, I love when DM plays unexpected deep tracks to their live sets, as I get tired of the singles. And so, for example, Flies on the Windscreen during Devotional, I Want You Now during the Exotic Tour, The Things You Said during the Spirit Tour. Listen, I remember when Death's Door made an appearance during the Devotional Tour as well. The list there, though, I don't know. See, I always consider Flies on the Windscreen to be a little bit more mainstream. I know it wasn't, like, officially a single, but to me, I'd always mentally sort of think of it as a single. But no, I'm with you. I appreciate it when they do the deep tracks, which became, which happened far less frequently as the band got older and toured, just because the set list, the number of songs in the set list remained while they ended up accumulating more music. So any opportunities for deep tracks were usually filled in by whatever album was being promoted at the time. I've made this comment before. I'd love to see Depeche do a Metallica situation with two back-to-back nights, and one being sort of a hits night and the one being more of a deep track and B-side night. I think that would be absolutely amazing. He goes on to write, Martin may acoustically play a deep track from time to time, but I am confident of the following live probabilities. Nothing live from a broken frame. My 40-year request for Sun in the Rainfall probably isn't happening. And that was such a tease in the lead up to the Memento Mori tour when Dave made that comment. 2, People Are People and Blasphemous Rumors were permanently retired after the Music for the Masses tour in 1988. Blasphemous Rumors, by the way, that's to me that's a crime that has not been a consistent standard on tour. I know for me as a fan and a burgeoning fan during that time period, Blasphemous Rumors was a huge track for me. I mean, it was like one of the definitive Depeche Mode songs. Where at the time, if you would have asked me what Depeche Mode songs will they always play live, of course, you get down the line and you get your Enjoy the Silence, Never Let Me Down Again, Personal Jesus. I absolutely would have included Blasphemous Rumors in there. I think it's a crime that it's not. I also would have included the full version of Shake the Disease as well. So another question I'll add to the list of questions whenever I have the opportunity to interview Martin or Dave. Why haven't you guys gone back to playing Blasphemous Rumors? Chris goes on to say, if anything is played live from Speak and Spell, it will just be Just Can't Get Enough. Same precedent for Construction Time again, meaning everything counts. Hardcore DM fans acknowledge that Here Is the House is one of their best. My request for a Dave Martin Gore duet ain't happening. Thank you for all you do, continuing to fly the flag for us, Chris. It's funny, I've been doing, there's certain Depeche Mode songs I mentioned that I listen to, just like 5 or 6 songs every single night as I go to bed. And Ghosts Again has been one that I listen to every single night. It used to be Cover Me was sort of the standard, and it got moved out of the rotation with the release of Memento Mori. That being said, I've worked in Here Is the House lately. Because it is one of my all-time, probably top 5 favorite Depeche Mode songs is Here Is the House. And the song is so seductive. Like, you get into that track, like so many of Depeche Mode songs, in the way that they just build, the way the songs progress. And you kind of start off with one track that's, it's very simple. But then once it kicks in, it just moves. Such a spectacular song. Yeah, so thank you, Chris, for that and giving me the opportunity to romanticize Here Is the House a little tiny bit. All right, let's go and hear from Andrew Fallon out of Essex, England. We were just talking about Essex. I'd like to thank you for your podcast. Thank you, Andrew. I'm not one of the real obsessive Depeche Mode fans, but since getting back into them after Memento Mori, I've been dipping into your podcast every week, and they are an invaluable source of news and information, so thank you. I appreciate that. In your most recent podcast, you shared some listener feedback about the new BBC audio documentary, which wasn't very positive. Having just listened to it myself, I wanted to offer an alternative perspective as I actually found it very interesting. I also find it very interesting because, as he admits here, and my apologies for my email dinging over here, they're kind of all combined together, so I apologize. That's what that noise is. I just thought I'd let you know. I have it set up through an email on one of my computers, and it dings every time a new email pops up. Anyway, I want to make mention that this BBC audio documentary is tailored for an individual like Andrew, which I think is great. I really do. If this offers up the opportunity for people to find out more about Depeche Mode within their fandom, I think that's fantastic. I guess maybe I was a little harsh on it last week, and it's mostly because of what I had heard regarding it, and that most of it, and it's true, most of it was about information that I think a lot of us that listen to the podcast are already aware of, but as Andrew proves here with his comment, it actually turns out that there are some casual fans out there, right? Not the real obsessive ones, but casual ones that are still into Depeche Mode enough to check out a podcast like this and may be able to glean quite a bit of information they may not be aware of with documentaries like this. As I think you mentioned, the documentary provides a broad historical overview of Depeche Mode rather than anything more in-depth. The documentary does, however, discuss the appeal of Depeche Mode to their fans. And what I really liked was how the perceptions of the band were placed in a cultural context in terms of the way Depeche Mode are viewed in Britain, including the town they're from, as opposed to other parts of the world. Perhaps this was a personal thing for me, as I'm from England and I grew up just down the road from Basildon, which I know well. In the UK and even in Basildon, Depeche Mode are massively underappreciated, as we were just talking about with the news of trying to provide them some recognition there. It's not that people hate them, they just don't really know about them other than just can't get enough. So it was interesting to hear the discussion of this kind of thing. I also learned that some of the new things from the documentary, for example, here in Britain, Just Can't Get Enough has been adopted as a football soccer chant, including, it would seem, in the Premier League, our equivalent to your NFL. I had heard that as well. In short, for those who are able, I would definitely recommend giving the documentary a listen. Thanks again for your podcast and best wishes, Andrew Fallon, Essex, England. Thank you for that, Andrew, and I very much appreciate your kind words and also your feedback regarding that documentary. And I'll reiterate something I said on last week's episode. On TikTok, it really is incredible. The algorithm's been feeding me this, but I've also been following these accounts. Just the number of young individuals that have gotten into Depeche Mode. It really is so cool to see. And it makes sense too. I have an 18-year-old who'll be 19 in December. I have a 23-year-old. They're both at home. This is just the way things are now, which is fine. I'm very thankful. The wife and I are incredibly thankful to have both of our boys here with us for as long as they can be here. But the themes in Depeche Mode's work, especially when you go back to the Holy Grail, the Holy Quadrilogy, I think I should call it, of Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion. Typically, I go trilogy. You know this if you've been listening to the song, to the album, to the podcast. Starting to fade, guys. If you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, I usually kind of go the trilogy: Music for the Masses, Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion. I came to the realization, though, that the real transition started with Black Celebration, and this was based off of some of the emails where we were talking about the various eras and previous podcasts of the band. And really, it's a quadrilogy. It doesn't get much better than Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, Violator, and Songs of Faith and Devotion. In terms of the progression of the band, the stylistic intention of every single album, how they differentiate from one another, the number of tracks that are just so good in all four of those albums. They're four masterful pieces of work. And those four albums, the lyrical content, the vibe, it's no shock that young people are finding them and getting into them later, as we get later on, that young people are finding them and gravitating towards them, because it speaks to every generation going through what you and I went through when we were their age, going through the difficulties heading into adulthood. It really is cool to see. On top of that, there's just no other band like Depeche Mode. I get it. Every band is unique. Every band is different. The popular bands, the good bands, they all have their very unique and distinct style. But there is just something extra. Always has been about Depeche Mode. You just can't compare it to anybody else. You get close with some of the other bands that popped up around them, but none of them really were able to go and tap into what Martin did with his lyrics. And Dave to a lesser extent later on, but definitely during those four albums, what Martin was able to do and what Alan contributed with Dave's vocals and Fletch being the glue that kept them all together. They are such a unique band unto themselves. And I was thinking about that the other day, just listening to some of the tracks, and I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head what it was, just going, there's no other band that resonates like this. Which is why I do a podcast every single week and have been for many, many years. So, all right, you know what? I need a nap. I'm not going to lie. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. Listen, if you like to read science fiction, I hope you'll take a moment and check out my science fiction series. I wrote 7 books in the series. It's called EMBARK. It's a space opera adventure series set in 2172, where flight culture has replaced car culture. 2 of Earth's largest corporations now supply the planet with the technology and fuel to make air and space flight available to everyone. Taft Guardia spends his weekends at an abandoned flying field, racing through the skies with his 3 best friends and the girl that he longs to be with, Keith Amaro, after receiving a mysterious message from her deceased aerospace engineer father. Catha and Taft make a shocking discovery. With Earth now suddenly facing a great disaster, a ruthless and power-hungry enemy emerges. Unwittingly, Taft, Catha, and their friends are thrust into the middle of humanity's fight for survival and a future among the stars. Listen, it's a fun and fast-paced, epic science fiction adventure without an agenda. Filled with some romance, a lot of cool 80s through the 2000s music references, a lot of those relating to Depeche Mode. Tons of action, unique technology, all told in an epic space opera setting. I wrote it for adults, but it's also age-appropriate for children 11 and older, so I hope you'll take a moment and head on over to Amazon.com and pick up EMBARK Book 1 today. If you want a quick introduction into my writing style, check out Book 4. It's a solo adventure called Gahan, Corbijn and the Asteroid of Misfortune. Yes, that Gahan, yes, that Corbijn. The protagonist, Jon Corbijn, is actually a former rock star on Earth, turned intergalactic messenger after disaster strikes the Earth. He crash lands with his sarcastic AI companion on an asteroid and has to use his wits to get off of the rock. Told in the first person, it links the first trilogy and the second trilogy, but it can be read without having read any of the other books in the series. Especially if you've read like The Martian or Project Hail Mary, this book will definitely be up your alley. And it's the shortest of all the books in the series, so it's a quick read or listen. Available in hardcover, paperback, audiobook, ebook, and Kindle Unlimited. Check it out at Amazon.com. Search for Jon, Jon Justice, and EMBARK, EMBARK. All right, thank you so much for checking out this week's episode. I hope wherever you are, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're safe. God bless, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
Depeche Mode, the podcast.